So here's the book I wrote, UFOs Over Colorado. I dug real deep into various UFO organizations, contacted a bunch of UFO researchers, got some original cases of my own, and let's just start digging into what I think are the top 20 Colorado cases. And here's a case I'm guessing you haven't heard about. This comes from researcher Donald Kehoe, and this case did appear in the Condon Committee files, which really surprised Air Force officers as they believed this case had been marked secret. And this occurred on the evening of May 13, 1967, when radar operators at Colorado Springs were shocked to see this blip on their radar scopes. This was on two separate stations, so we know it wasn't an artifact or a weird echo of, birds or something. But what this blip on the radar showed was a very large object approaching Colorado Springs. It was a very solid image, and this object appeared to be at a level of 200 feet. And it was doing an approach very much like an F-100 or an F-104 jet interceptor would do if they were practicing a landing but not actually touching down. What was very strange is while this object did appear on two separate radar stations, they could not see anything visibly. It was invisible. And this didn't happen once, this happened twice. And as Donald Kehoe writes, and I quote, "According to the radar track, the UFO came to within 1.5 miles of the control tower, but the tower operators could not see it, even with binoculars." To the CU radar expert who investigated this case, this was the most baffling radar case on record. He admitted he could not find an explanation. But for the Air Force, it was far more than puzzling. Their own radar experts had reached the same conclusion. Some unknown high-speed aircraft had maneuvered over the airport absolutely unseen. Could the technically advanced UFO aliens have developed a means for making their spacecraft invisible? It seemed fantastic, but what other answer was there? If true, they could be in serious trouble in case of UFO attacks. This must remain as one of the most puzzling radar cases on record, and no conclusion is possible at this time. All right, so this invisible UFO, I mean, we know now, of course, that UFOs are able to turn invisible. Many, many witnesses have called this, but this is one of the first cases involving this. And this case did reach the Condon Committee, and Air Force officers were surprised because they thought it was going to be kept confidential, but it somehow made it in. And the radar expert, Gordon Thayer, who investigated this case for the Condon Committee, had pretty much discounted all the other cases, calling them weather propagations. But this was one case he was never able to explain. And that's why I wanted to include it on this list of sightings.